Dear friends, we have talked about the art of suffering. We know that if one knows how to suffer, one will suffer much less. And one can make good use of suffering in order to create compassion, understanding. The art of suffering is linked to the art of happiness. A practitioner should be an artist. She should know how to create joy and happiness. Skillfully, she creates joy and happiness for herself and for other people around her. And there are many ways to create joy and happiness. The first method of creating joy and happiness is to let go. To let go. To leave behind. Leave, that is a Chinese word for letting go. Letting go will give birth to joy and to happiness. This is a sentence very well known in Buddhist literature. There is a kind of joy, a kind of happiness that is born from letting go. And letting go is the first practice in order to bring in joy and happiness. And how? Many of us are bound to so many things. And we believe these things are essential for our being, for our survival, for our happiness, for our security. But if we look deeply, we might find out that these things are really obstacles for our joy and happiness. And you have to look deeply into the nature of these things that are binding you. And if you have get insight, you can let it go. And after you let go, joy comes and happiness comes right away. You need some courage. With that situation, with that person, you continue to suffer, and yet you do not have the courage to let go. That object of craving, you think that without that object, you'll be left alone, you cannot survive, you cannot be happy. But even with that object with you, you continue to suffer and cry. But if you come to look deeply into that object of attachment, you will realize that it is the very obstacle for your joy and happiness. And you have the capacity to let it go. There is an easy example, like if you live in a very big and noisy and polluted city like Los Angeles. There's a lot of noise, a lot of dust, odor and things like that. So one day you want to go to the countryside for the weekend. Usually you are very busy, but that day a friend persuaded you to get away from the city for one weekend. You told him that, well, you cannot go because you have so many things to do. But finally he was able to persuade you to leave. And there you are sitting on the car, and 1 hour later you find yourself in the countryside. You see the ocean, you see the sky, and you feel the breeze on your cheeks. And that is joy. That is happiness. And that is born from the fact that you are able to leave the city behind. You are able to leave behind the city. If you do not leave the city, how can you experience that kind of joy and happiness being in the countryside? So to let go is a way to have joy and happiness. Sometimes you think that such position is crucial for your happiness. Such a diploma, such an honor, such a sum of money, such a house, such a person is crucial for your happiness. But maybe the truth is not so. You are bound to it. You think that you cannot survive without it. But in fact it is an obstacle. And if you have the courage to let go, and then joy and happiness will come right away. You don't have to go and look for joy and happiness. One day the Buddha was sitting with 7, 8 monks in the wood. They just come back from an arm round and was ready to share mindful lunch together. And one farmer passed by. The farmer looked lost. He asked the Buddha, "Monks, have you seen my cows going by here?" The Buddha said, "What cows?" He said, "Well, I have 4 cows. And I don't know why this morning they all run away from me. And also I have 2 acres of sesame seed. And this year the insect ate them all. I think I'm going to kill myself. I have lost everything. My crop, my cows." And the Buddha said, "Dear friend, we have been sitting here almost an hour and we have not seen any cow passing by here. So maybe you should go and look in the other direction." And when the farmer is gone, the Buddha turned around and looked at his monks and smiled. And he said, "Dear friends, you are very lucky. You do not have any cows to lose." And this is the practice of releasing your cows. And everyone should take a piece of paper and write down the name of their cows. We think that our cows are crucial for our survival, for our well-being. But it might not be so. And the more you release, the more cow you release, the more joyful and be, you become. And that is the first tactic proposed by the Buddha. Joy and happiness born from letting go. I think Ling Yu Tang told us a story that there was a rich lady living in New York, Manhattan, New York City. And she just purchased a piece of land adjacent to her building. And she wanted to build a big building and sell the apartment houses so that she can have more money, income. And that morning there was a friend visiting her. And she stood at the window and looked out the window. She saw the Washington Bridge, a lot of blue sky. And she turned to the lady and she said, "My friend, don't build a building. If you build a building, you don't have that beautiful view anymore. You can no longer see the Washington Bridge. You can no longer see the blue sky and the river. And you just stand here and look, and you have joy and happiness. What is the use of having more money and lose all that kind of beauty and happiness?" And then the rich lady, she understood, and she gave up the plan of building that building. So she was able to release one cow, thanks to the presence of a friend. Most of us continue to suffer because we are not capable of releasing our cows. So during sitting meditation, we have to look deeply, recognize our cows, and learn to let go. One of the big cow that we have, one of the big cows we have is our idea of happiness. You think that you can be happy only if you get that situation, if you can marry that person, if you can purchase that house and so on. You have an idea, and you think that without that, happiness is not possible. So you have one idea of happiness. And you might suffer just because of your idea. And you continue to suffer with that idea until one day you are capable to release the idea and you become happy. And if you come to understand, to see that that very idea is the obstacle for your joy and happiness, and you have the capacity to let go of the idea, joy and happiness come right away. Because there is many ways for joy and happiness to come. And we prevent them to come just because we broke their way. We have an idea. Every one of us has an idea of happiness. So you have to re-examine that idea. It may be a cow to be released.